I'm Nick Morgan, president of Public Words, a communications consulting company, and the author of Can You Hear Me? How to Communicate with People in a Virtual World, published by Harvard Business Review Press. Can You Hear Me is about this massive, unregulated social experiment we've inflicted on ourselves in the last 50 years or so. It began in the 70s with email. It was slow and a gradual process as we gradually got rid of paper and interoffice memos and started using email exclusively. But it really accelerated in the last 10 years with the mobile phone. And here's the thing, we've created this half virtual, half face-to-face world. What we didn't realize was that it was going to take out all the emotion that we normally communicate easily and unconsciously face-to-face. And as a result, we've created this world in which, lacking emotion, we're lost, we're at sea as humans. The first and most important key finding in this book is that in the virtual world, there's a lack of feedback, the normal kind of feedback that we get when we speak, when we talk to each other face to face. The expression in the eyes, the smile, the nod, the touch on the arm, all those things that we take for granted face to face are lacking in the virtual world. This leads to other problems. This leads to a lack of empathy, perhaps somewhat surprisingly, because you might think that we would work harder to find out what other people are thinking, but we don't. We just assume the worst. And that leads to more fragile connections and a lack of trust and empathy in human relationships. I wrote this book because when I was speaking to audiences around the world, as I do about body language, my favorite topic, what I found was that people started asking this question in the last few years. So Nick, this body language stuff, it's all great, I'm interested, but I work in a virtual world. My team is virtual, I never see them. How does that affect body language? And I started realizing that's an important question in the world that we live in now. We have to figure that out. And what I found really shocked me, that in that virtual world, we can't communicate in the same way that we used to communicate. We have to learn a new language, a new way of communicating. In the book, I talk about a number of ways to make the problems of the virtual world better. And the first and most important is to understand that what we humans care about is each other's intent. So, say I have a virtual boss, or I work virtually with my boss most of the time. I don't get to see him or her face to face. What I care about is, what's her intent toward me? Is she approving of the work I'm doing? Is she thinking I'm working hard enough or not? And also, I need to be sure that I'm understood, that she understands my intent toward her. And so if we begin with that, most of the solutions flow from that, is making clear what each other's intent is. An example of how communication doesn't work in the virtual world is leaders who have sent, and most leaders have, a two-word email like the following to one of their employees. Good job, nice job, great job. And when I ask audiences that when I'm speaking about the book, everybody who's a leader raises their hand. Yeah, they've sent one of those emails. And I ask them, would it shock you to learn that 60% of the time that email is read as sarcastic? And there's an audible gasp in the audience when people hear that. And they say, what do I do? What do I do? And I'll say, time to start learning to use emojis, because that would remove the ambiguity. And their response always is, emojis, they're childish, I can't do them. And I say, get over it. It's one of the simple little practical things you can do to make communication in the virtual world better. I think Can You Hear Me is important for business professionals, leaders, executives to read because it's a very practical book. We can't live without our gadgets. We're stuck in this virtual world, this half virtual, half face-to-face world. We have it for the rest of time as far as we know. But we need to learn to communicate differently in this world, because what's not clear is the basic human connection that we can take for granted face to face. And we're all like generals fighting the last war. We're still fighting the same way, we're still communicating the same way that we used to communicate, as if it was face to face. So we need to learn a new way of communicating, and this book shows you how with lots and lots of practical examples.